Be something wrong with the phone. There's one of those phone company ladies up there on the pole.
British comedy in the 90s didn't play it safe. It was loud, it was weird, and it was absolutely everywhere. You basically grew up with it, quoting punchlines in school, reenacting scenes at the dinner table, laughing at jokes you probably shouldn't have understood. We're heading straight back to when British comedy had no filter and even less shame. It was clever, chaotic, and completely unforgettable. And at the centre of it all, there were these 7 legends that defined a golden era of British laughs. Rowan Atkinson. Nobody made silence funnier than Rowan Atkinson. While other comedians were telling stories and chasing punchlines, he could make people laugh with just a look, a twitch of the lip, a slow blink, or the way he moved his hands. That was all he needed. Mr. Bean became a legend without saying much at all. No long speeches. Just pure, simple comedy that worked in every country and every language. Rowan was more than just Mr. Bean. Before that, there was Blackadder, a smart, sharp-talking role that showed how clever his timing really was. He could go from silly to serious and still be just as funny. That takes more than talent. It takes absolute control. Everyone remembers the turkey on his head, the tiny car, the way he got dressed without getting out of bed. These scenes stuck with people for a reason. He knew how to keep things simple but unforgettable, and every second counted. Rowan Atkinson made comedy look effortless. By 1995, Mr. Bean was airing in more than 190 countries, a proof that one raised eyebrow can speak any language. Jennifer Saunders didn't just make people laugh, she made chaos look cool. In the 90s, she dropped Absolutely Fabulous onto British TV like a bottle of champagne exploding in slow motion. It was loud, it was wild, and it was something no one had seen before. Playing Adina Monsoon, she didn't care about rules. She mocked fame, fashion, diets, even herself. Ab Fab's 1992 debut drew roughly 5 million viewers, huge for BBC Two. But Jennifer wasn't new to the game. Before Ab Fab, she was already breaking ground with French and Saunders. Did you know? The original idea for Absolutely Fabulous actually came from a sketch Jennifer wrote for French and Saunders. What started as a satire of fashion, obsessed mothers turned into one of Britain's most iconic sitcoms. With Dawn French by her side, they built sketches that were smart, strange, and way ahead of their time. Parodies and characters that made you laugh and double take at the same time. It wasn't just funny, it was fearless. Jennifer didn't blend in, she stood out. She created characters that were loud, messy, and unforgettable. People loved them because they felt real. In a decade full of comedy giants, Jennifer Saunders was the one dancing on the table, with a drink in hand, shouting the punchline before anyone else could say it. Nothing and no one could slow her down. Rik Mayall. Rik Mayall was never subtle. He came at you full speed, eyes wide, voice booming, like a firework that kept going long after it should have stopped. Every performance felt like it could go off the rails at any second, and that's exactly why people loved him. He didn't just bring chaos to comedy, he was chaos. In the 90s, Bottom became the perfect stage for Rik's madness. Violent, filthy, and somehow still lovable, his character Richie was a disaster of a man. Desperate, delusional, and constantly getting smacked in the face with frying pans. But underneath all that madness was timing, precision, a performer who knew exactly when to shout, when to pause, and when to throw himself down the stairs. Before Bottom, he helped launch the whole wave of alternative comedy with the Young Ones and the New Statesman. He didn't follow the old rules of stand-up or sitcoms. He ripped them up and laughed while doing it. Rik Mayall wasn't only funny, he was untamed, unpredictable, and totally unforgettable. Every line felt like it might explode. Every scene looked like it could collapse. And yet, every time, He made it all work. Ready for a genius who could land the same laugh without raising her voice? Dawn French. Dawn French didn't need to shout to be funny. She could land a joke with just a smile, a raised eyebrow, or the way she walked into a room. Her presence was warm, sharp, and completely in control. In the 90s, she was everywhere, and for good reason. As one half of French and Saunders, she helped shape sketch comedy into something smarter and stranger. With Saunders, she stretched one tiny idea into 5 minutes of pure gold. They didn't just make people laugh, they made people look at comedy differently. But it was the Vicar of Dibley that made Dawn a household name on her own. Playing a female vicar in a small, chaotic village might not sound groundbreaking now, but back then it was bold. And she made it work. Like when she face-planted into a puddle, stood up soaking wet, and still owned the moment without missing a beat. Or the Easter special, where she inhaled half the village's chocolate before the hymn even started. She brought heart, timing, and that rare mix of silliness and strength. It made the show more than just funny. It felt like home. Dawn French didn't chase laughs. She earned them. And she did it by being completely herself. No wonder the Vicar of Dibley is still regularly repeated at Christmas. Steve Coogan. Steve Coogan didn't just create a character, he created a monster and made him a legend. Alan Partridge wasn't lovable, he wasn't cool, he was awkward, smug, petty, pretending he knew what he was doing and never quite pulling it off. And that's exactly why people couldn't stop watching. Alan Partridge actually started as a spoof sports reporter on BBC Radio 4's On the Hour, before awkwardly evolving into his own TV universe. In the 90s, Coogan took Alan from a sports desk sidekick to the centre of one of the most painfully funny shows on TV. Knowing Me, Knowing You and I'm Alan Partridge weren't sitcoms. They were slow, cringe-filled masterpieces. Every silence dragged. You winced. You laughed, and somehow you couldn't look away. It wasn't just bad hair or awkward interviews. It was deliberate. Every awkward pause was on purpose. Coogan knew exactly what made people uncomfortable and turned that into comedy. He wasn't chasing laughs. He built tension, then broke it in the most perfect way. Alan Partridge became a mirror. You saw every overconfident boss, every awkward conversation, every try-hard moment in him, and somehow you loved him for it. He built something so real, people still quote him like he's an old friend. By 1998, Alan Partridge had earned Coogan 2 British Academy Film Awards BAFTAs and gave Britain a whole new dictionary of cringe. Harry Enfield. Harry Enfield created characters so real you swore you'd met before. Loud neighbours, awkward teenagers, clueless politicians. His sketches hit because they felt real. In the 90s, Harry Enfield and Chums was more than a comedy show. It was a weekly snapshot of British life, exaggerated just enough to make you laugh without being mean. Kevin the Teenager was every grunting, door-slamming kid across the country. Tim Nice But Dim was every overly polite idiot you couldn't quite hate. And Wayne and Waynetta? Pure chaos, somehow both horrible and lovable at the same time. Enfield didn't overdo it. He kept things simple, sharp, and close to home. He saw what people were like and pushed it just far enough to make it hilarious. The characters didn't vanish after the credits rolled. You saw them at work, at home, maybe even across your dinner table. Harry Enfield didn't need to explain the joke. You just got it. He showed Britain exactly what it looked like, and people couldn't stop laughing. No one in the 90s captured it quite like he did. Victoria Wood. Victoria Wood never chased the spotlight. It found her. Every perfectly timed line she wrote earned that attention. While other comics were loud and over the top, Wood mastered a harder trick, turning everyday life into something hilarious. No shouting was required. First, she watched and listened, catching the small truths we all miss. Then she slipped in a line so sharp and familiar, you laughed because she was really talking about you. In the 90s, she was a powerhouse, writing, performing, singing, and still finding time to deliver punchlines no one else could write. Her stand-up wasn't just jokes, it was full of stories, full of people you recognised, crafted with care and delivered with perfect rhythm. And in Dinner Ladies, she turned canteen chatter into comedy that felt quietly legendary. Timing and truth were her superpowers. She could take the most ordinary moments, like queuing or eating a meal, and turn it into something you'd remember forever. Victoria Wood wrote comedy, but what set her apart was how deeply she understood people. In a decade full of noise, she proved that real talent doesn't need volume. It just needs a voice like hers. These are the comedians who defined British laughter in the 90s. They weren't just familiar faces. They shaped how we laughed, how we spoke, and how we still remember the decade. If one of them still makes you laugh, tell us in the comments. If someone's missing, we want to hear that too. Stick around. There are more legends, more laughs, and we are just getting started. Hit subscribe and don't miss what's next.